Thank you for joining with me again in our exploration of A Course in Miracles. We will be reading from chapter 18 today. We'll be practicing lesson 15, and we will be looking at the 34th principle of what constitutes a miracle. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, and I'll go ahead and click on Read A Course in Miracles, the text. On the left-hand side, we scroll down to chapter 18, the passing of the dream. And we'll look at section 1, the substitute reality. So let's begin. To substitute is to accept instead. If you would but consider exactly what this entails, you would perceive at once how much at variance this is with the goal the Holy Spirit has given you and would accomplish for you. To substitute is to choose between renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor of the other. For this special purpose, one is judged more valuable and the other is replaced by him. The relationship in which the substitution occurred is thus fragmented, and its purpose split accordingly. To fragment is to exclude, and substitution is the strongest defense the ego has for separation. So here I just want to remind you that the sonship basically means humanity, and so you can use that word instead if you feel that the use of the word sonship is strange for you. Let me go back to sharing. Let's continue with paragraph 2. The Holy Spirit never uses substitutes. Where the ego perceives one person as a replacement for another, the Holy Spirit sees them joined and indivisible. He does not judge between them, knowing they are one. Being united, they are one because they are the same. Substitution is clearly a process in which they are perceived as different. One would unite, the other separate. Nothing can come between what God has joined and what the Holy Spirit sees as one. But everything seems to come between the fragmented relationships the ego sponsors to destroy. Let's keep going with paragraph 3. The one emotion in which substitution is impossible is love. Fear involves substitution by definition, for it is love's replacement. Fear is both a fragmented and fragmenting emotion. It seems to take many forms, and each one seems to require a different form of acting out for satisfaction. While this appears to introduce quite variable behavior, a far more serious effect lies in the fragmented perception from which the behavior stems. No one is seen complete. The body is emphasized with special emphasis on certain parts and used as the standard for comparison of acceptance or rejection for acting out a special form of fear. Let's continue with paragraph 4. You who believe that God is fear made but one substitution. It has taken many forms because it was the substitution of illusion for truth, of fragmentation for wholeness. It has become so splintered and subdivided and divided again over and over that it's now almost impossible to perceive it once was one and still is what it was. That one error which brought truth to illusion, infinity to time, and life to death was all you ever made. Your whole world rests upon it. Everything you see reflects it, and every special relationship that you have ever made is a part of it. Okay. And so here we're being reminded of the original cause for really all of our quote unquote problems and our stresses, our fears, our source of guilt, doubt, worry, is where we have fragmented what we see, what we perceive. And it's ancient. The text is showing that it has been happening over and over and over again for a long, long time. And it started really with the naming of things. And it gets repeated every time a baby is born, and the baby is diligently and systematically taught the same divisive means through which to experience and perceive the world. And this is hard, this is hard for the personality to wrap its head around, because the personality is constructed around this idea of I am this and you are that. I am this and that is that. However, there was a time, and there will be a time again, when even that concept dissolves away. And so we know that it's possible to have consciousness, for consciousness to exist without the perception of the separate, divided parts. And so what if you were to look around and just practice seeing the world as if it was a real live painting, and you are in it, you're part of the painting. And so from the painting's point of view, everything is made up of the same stuff. The painting is just pigments of paint on a canvas, different colors and different textures, but essentially all made from the same stuff. And so perhaps play with that. Take a minute to look around and consider how everything's actually made from the same stuff. All right, so I'm going to pause here. We'll go back to the text. We'll see what happens next. Paragraph 5. You may be surprised to hear how very different is reality from what you see. You do not realize the magnitude of that one error. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it a world of total unreality had to emerge. What else could come of it? Its fragmented aspects are fearful enough as you begin to look at them. But nothing you have seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error, which seemed to cast you out of heaven, to shatter knowledge into meaningless bits of disunited perceptions, and to force you to make further substitutions. So important. We'll keep going with paragraph 6. That was the first projection of error outward. The world arose to hide it and became the screen on which was projected and drawn between you and the truth. The truth extends inward, where the idea of loss is meaningless and only increase is conceivable. Do you really think it's strange that a world in which everything is backwards and upside down arose from this projection of error? It was inevitable, for truth brought to this could only remain within quiet and take no part in all the mad projection by which this world was made. Call it not sin but madness, for such it was, and so it still remains. Invest it not with guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished in reality. And above all, be not afraid of it. And so what this is saying is that the world that we perceive, full of fear and conflict, power struggles, violence, anger, and so on, is the illusory world born of this fragmentation, the fragmentation of consciousness, where we believe that we were kicked out of the kingdom of heaven. But when we shift our perception to see that which is beautiful and that which is loving, that which is cohesive, then we start to share God's perception. But it's even more than that. It's actually seeing what's actually there, which we could say from almost a scientific point of view that it's really particles and waves and light. When we go deep into a meditation practice, we find that what we are is light. We find that the gross sensations start to fade into the background and something else quite subtle, quite bright and beautiful and peaceful emerges. And this is really our true essence. And so when the passage is talking about guilt, right? It says, invest it not with guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished in reality. And so what guilt implies is that something wrong must have happened to justify then this perception, this belief in separation. And I've talked about before how guilt then is the baseline for everything that is wrong with our thinking in terms of not feeling like we're enough, loneliness, being alone, and then the ensuing power struggles, conflicts, the ego trying to get what it thinks it wants, trying to manipulate reality, trying to manipulate others to get what it thinks it wants. All right, so let's go back to the text. Let's continue. Oh, we're reminded a bit above all, be not afraid of it. Okay, so paragraph 7. When you seem to see some twisted form of the original error rising to frighten you, say only, God is not fear, but love, and it will disappear. The truth will save you. It has not left you to go out into the mad world and so depart from you. Inward is sanity. Insanity is outside you. You but believe it is the other way, that truth is outside and error and guilt within. Your little senseless substitutions, touched with insanity and swirling lightly off on a mad course like feathers dancing insanely in the wind, have no substance. They fuse and merge and separate in shifting and totally meaningless patterns that need not be judged at all. To judge them individually is pointless. Their tiny differences in form are no real differences at all. None of them matters. That they have in common and nothing else. Yet what else is necessary to make them all the same? So this brings up again this false idea, which is mimicked in the Old Testament, that we have a fearful God, an angry God, and a jealous God. This is not what the Course in Miracles teaches at all. It teaches us only of a loving God. And so there also in lies this mistaken perception, this misunderstanding of the nature of God, of the Creator. Oh, and I like the imagery here, right? Oh, and in this paragraph too, we were given a very specific instruction, which was when you seem to see some twisted form of the original error rising to frighten you. So we can just say, when you ever feel frightened or worried or anxious, say to yourself, remind yourself, God is not fear, but love. And we're being assured that it will disappear. Okay, let's continue with paragraph 8. Let them all go, dancing in the wind, dipping and turning till they disappear from sight, far, far outside of you, and turn you to the stately calm within, where in holy stillness dwells the living God you never left, and who never left you. The Holy Spirit takes you gently by the hand and retraces with you your mad journey outside yourself, leading you gently back to the truth and safety within. He brings all your insane projections and the wild substitutions that you've placed outside you to the truth. Thus, he reverses the course of insanity and restores you to reason. Paragraph 9. In your relationship with your brother, where he has taken charge of everything at your request, he has set the course inward to the truth you share. In the mad world outside you, nothing can be shared, but only substituted, and sharing and substituting have nothing in common in reality. Within yourself, you love your brother with a perfect love. Here is holy ground in which no substitution can enter, and where only the truth in your brother can abide. Here you're joined in God, as much together as you are with him. The original error has not entered here, nor ever will. Here is the radiant truth to which the Holy Spirit has committed your relationship. Let him bring it here, where you would have it be. Give him but a little faith in your brother to help him show you that no substitute you made for heaven can keep you from it. And this reminds me of a story where Tom had a session. Some of his sessions are on the YouTube channel. You can listen to excerpts and full sessions by him. But many, many years ago, he came in really angry about his wife. And so the beautiful thing about Tom is that he goes very deeply into that very deep state of relaxation and expanded consciousness. And so through that, we are able to speak to different parts of his consciousness or soul family, which is really all one. But we can speak to what we would perceive of as angels or guides or other parts that are connected to his soul's consciousness. And so because he was so angry with what was happening in his personal life with his wife, and because for me, the most important thing is his peace. So I asked him, would you like me to ask about your wife and why she's showing up in the way that she's showing up? And he said, no, I don't want to give that any attention. And I said, I know, but the anger that you're feeling is really the poison that you drink. And we can ask the higher perspective around it to get a better understanding of why she's showing up for you in this way, because somehow it has a purpose. So once he was in that deep state of relaxation, I asked the question about his wife, and then suddenly he throws himself back in the chair. He bursts out laughing. And so this higher part of his consciousness, the part of his consciousness that he doesn't connect with in his everyday level of consciousness, that part, which was the one that was laughing, said, oh, he has forgotten. They're friends, actually. She volunteered this time to play this part so he could have these experiences. And that's entirely what it's for. We've actually, in a part of our mind, made agreements with the people in our lives, especially the ones that push our buttons and challenge us. We've made a contract with them for them to show up in a certain kind of way, to play a certain kind of role in order for us to have an experience. And I've shared in the other videos that part of that experience, the purpose of that experience, is for us to be ourselves, to feel how painful it is when we lose our center, when we leave peace, when we leave love, to use those unpleasant feelings as the tip-off, as the alarm clock, to then remind us that, oh, I'm leaving peace, I'm leaving love. So how can I get myself back to that? This section of the text is giving us that way. It is giving us a little sweet, succinct practice where we remind ourselves God is not fear, but love. So good. All right, I'm going to come back to sharing my screen. Paragraph 10. In you, there is no separation, and no substitute can keep you from your brother. Your reality was God's creation and has no substitute. You are so firmly joined in truth that only God is there, and he would never accept something else instead of you. He loves you both equally and as one. And as he loves you, so you are. You're not joined together in illusions. but in the thought so holy and so perfect that illusions cannot remain to darken the holy place in which you stand together. God is with you, my brother. Let us join in him in peace and gratitude and accept his gift as our most holy and perfect reality in which we share with him. Paragraph 11. Heaven is restored to all the sonship through your relationship, for in it lies the sonship, whole and beautiful, safe in your love. Heaven has entered quietly, for all illusions have been gently brought unto the truth in you, and love has shined upon you, blessing your relationship with truth. God and his whole creation have entered it together. How lovely and how holy is your relationship with the truth shining upon it. Heaven beholds it and rejoices that you have let it come to you. And God himself is glad that your relationship is as it was created. The universe within you stands with you, together with your brother, and heaven looks with love on what is joined in it, along with its creator. Let's imagine that in the material world, God is like the sun. And so the sun does not discriminate on where it shines. It shines equally on everything. And it is always there, even when there are clouds, even when our view is blocked. The sun is still there shining. All right, let me go back to sharing the screen. Paragraph 12. Whom God has called should hear no substitutes. Their call is but an echo of the original error that shattered heaven. And what became of peace in those who heard? Return with me to heaven, walking together with your brother out of this world and through another to the loveliness and joy the other holds within it. Would you still further weaken and break apart what is already broken and hopeless? Is it here that you would look for happiness? Or would you not prefer to heal what has been broken and join in making whole what has been ravaged by separation and disease? And remember that the word disease is dis-ease, right? The absence of ease. And so when there is absence of ease in the body, then we experience that as dis-ease. But the cause is the dis-ease in our minds and by affect our emotions. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing. Paragraph 13. You have been called, together with your brother, to the most holy function this world contains. It is the only one that has no limits and reaches out to every broken fragment of the sonship with healing and uniting comfort. This is offered you in your holy relationship. Accept it here, and you will give as you have accepted. The peace of God is given you with the glowing purpose in which you join with your brother. The holy light that brought you and him together must extend as you accepted it. So beautiful. All right, so our calling is clear. Let's now go to the lesson. And so we are practicing lesson 15 today. And I'll let the narrator read it.
Lesson 15. My thoughts are images that I have made. It is because the thoughts you think appear as images that you do not recognize them as nothing. You think them, and so you think you see them. This is how your seeing was made. This is the function you have given your body's eyes. It is not seeing, it is image making. It takes the place of seeing, replacing vision with illusions. This introductory idea to the process of image making that you call seeing will not have much meaning for you. You will begin to understand it when you have seen little edges of light around the same familiar objects which you see now. That is the beginning of real vision. You can be certain that real vision will come quickly when this has occurred. As we go along, you may have many, light episodes. They may take many different forms, some of them quite unexpected. Do not be afraid of them. They are signs that you are opening your eyes at last. They will not persist because they merely symbolize true perception and they are not related to knowledge. These exercises will not reveal knowledge to you, but they will prepare the way to it. In practicing the idea for today, repeat it first to yourself and then apply it to whatever you see around you, using its name and letting your eyes rest on it as you say, "This blank is an image that I have made. That blank is an image that I have made." It is not necessary to include a large number of specific subjects for the application of today's idea. It is necessary, however, to continue to look at each subject while you repeat the idea to yourself. The idea should be repeated quite slowly each time. Although you will obviously not be able to apply the idea to very many things during the minute or so of practice that is recommended, try to make the selection as random as possible. Less than a minute will do for the practice periods if you begin to feel uneasy. Do not have more than 3 application periods for today's idea unless you feel completely comfortable with it, and do not exceed 4. However, the idea can be applied as needed throughout the day.
Okay. In the last video, I forgot to plug my microphone back in. Okay, but I've remembered this time. Okay, this is a fun application. So in my experience of the shift in perception, your eyes do begin to adjust and start to see things as light. And you may even start to experience the whole scene becoming light or even becoming formless. And so in this case, the lesson has asked us not to be afraid, but one time this phenomena took place while I was driving. And so I had to use all of my will to snap myself out of it because basically everything was becoming formless in front of me. I'm just sharing that with you. I'm sharing my own experience, but my invitation is to enter this practice period without any expectations. I'm going to set the timer for just a minute. But first, as always, just start to just bring your attention to your body and to the breath. Just notice where your body ends and the air begins. Come home to the support of the furniture, the floor, the earth. Settling into this support, acknowledging this support, grateful for this life. And I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again so that you can see the language for the lesson. And so remember that the idea is my thoughts are images that I have made. And then we'll take a minute to just look around. And as the eyes land on specific items, repeating this and the item is an image that I have made. Whether it's near or far, you're just simply using this or that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. Okay, that's our timer. The lesson is inviting us to have 3 or so practice periods in a day. If this lesson feels stressful, don't strain. Practice for under a minute. But if you feel comfortable, just practice with a full minute. But remember too that our reading, the section of the reading, has also given us another practice, which is if we feel something frightening us or worrying us, causing stress or overwhelm, we can remind ourselves that God is not fear, but love. And it's a fast way to bring love into that moment, into stress. And one of the practices that I have shared in my classes is taking a moment to look back over a stressful period. It could be a stressful day, it could be a stressful week, a stressful month, it could be a stressful year. And just taking a moment from this point now and just look back over it and see if there's anywhere that it's possible to have experienced exactly what you experienced. All the parts, all the ingredients are the same. Everything unfolded as it did. However, you were without your stress, you're without your worry, you're without your reactive tendencies, because a reactive tendency is only reactive in as much as it's frightened or worried or stressed, because there is this disconnection from God in that moment. There's a disconnection from faith in that moment. But absolute faith includes everything that unfolds. So the practice is to just look back over that which has unfolded and ask yourself, could I see myself experiencing that, going through exactly the same paces, but without the stress and without the worry, because it's happening anyway. It's happening anyway. We get to the other side of it anyway. And so why not be without the stress and the worry? Just let it unfold and let's be in response. And if we just let it unfold, let the inevitability of it be what it is, then we are free. Our mind is free. Our heart is free to actually be open to other ways of responding and perhaps even expediting a solution or expediting a path to peace and expediting or opening up the means through which miracles can manifest. Okay, so we're going back to the text, clicking on the meaning of miracles, the principles of miracles, and we are now up to principle 34. Let's hear what it has to say. Okay, so miracles restore the mind to its fullness. By atoning for lack, they establish perfect protection. The spirit's strength leaves no room for intrusions. So what this is saying is that miracles correct the false belief in limitation, in lack, to, like it says, return to the mind's original fullness. And so when the mind is centered in truth, when the heart and the mind are centered in truth, then that is what strength, what divine strength feels like. And when we are the embodiment of divine strength, then there is no room for intrusions, being the small worries, indignations, grievances, and that sort of thing. All right, wonderful. Thank you again for joining with me in this exploration of A Course in Miracles. I'm certainly enjoying doing this with you. So just remember to check the website www.alilacenter.org for online class schedules. Keep coming back to the channel for other videos, natural self-healing videos, meditation videos. And I look forward to seeing you next time.